Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Let's continue with the Docker series. So if you've installed Docker Desktop and if you're following along my videos, doing your own research, and if you're experiencing issues like your laptop's becoming slower, then that's good news and you're getting inside Docker. You're getting into Docker. So that's great. And with that in mind, let's get started. So today we learn about port mapping in Docker and what it basically means, and we'll check out its benefits. So a sneak peek from previous video, if you remember, we did this 5000 port 5000 like that. So that is basically port mapping. And now we'll just dive deeper into it and understand what that basically means. So before that, let's look at the benefits of port mapping and why it's required. So let's explain this point first. So I think this point is important first. So port mapping allows you to access your containers. So very simply put, your container is currently running on port 5000 for backend and port 3000 for front end. Why is that happening? Because we are exposing it in our Docker files. As you can see here, we are exposing 5000 and 3000. So now in our Docker container, these ports are running on 5000 and 3000. But for us to be able to run these Docker containers on our local machine, we need to map the 5000 and 3000 with ports from our local machine. And that's why we chose 5000 here and 3000 in case of the front end application. So port mapping is the reason why we're able to do that. Now, let's assume you have multiple services running on various ports in your local machine. Then you can use port mapping for conflict resolution. So what this basically means is, let me read this and then let me read this again and I can explain it together. For example, in your development environment, you typically want to use the standard 5000 port and 3000 port. You want to do that for your development environment, but the Docker container that you are pulling in and running the Docker container, that might be from the production environment. And now if you're running production environment code on your local, you want to keep that 5000 3000 port for your development purposes. You do not want to use it for your production. So in this case, what you can do, you can assign some other random port in your computer to the port 5000 in the container. So I have put 8989 for the backend image, and for the front end, I put a random four ones. So 1111 port, mapped it to 3000 for the front end. So now if you check our containers, you can see we have four running instances, one for port 5000, 3000, four ones and 8989. And backend images are running on port 5000 and 8989. Front end is running on 3000 and 1111. So right now you might be like, okay, what is the point of running two different, like the same endpoint in two different ports? What's the point right now? See, this is the backend endpoint. It's running on 5000, another backend endpoint which is running on 8989. Then similarly, we have localhost 411 and localhost 3000. So right now they're the same applications, but they're running on different ports. So that's how strong port mapping is. And if you want to use port 5000, 3000 for development purposes, yep, sure, you can do that. Go ahead and you can click on this, and then you'll be able to either pause them or stop these selected items. So when you stop them, it will not run on port 5000, 3000 anymore, but it would continue running on four ones and 8989. Now you can use 5000 port and 3000 port for your local development activities. So that's the beauty of Dockerfile, uh, port mapping in Dockers. So here, to summarize, what's happening is in your Docker file, when you expose port 3000, this is the port the container uses in the cloud. And in your local machine, you can port any number to 3000 to make it run on your local machine. So that is about port mapping. So in the next video, we'll talk about volumes and we'll explore this section over here. So this is also an interesting section. We'll get back to that. So that's all, everybody. Take care and see you in the next tutorial. Bye.